Hello, North York, and welcome to Meet Your Neighbor, a weekly Willowdale interview series. Each week, we'll introduce you to a new neighbor in the spirit of building community connection and ask all those tough questions like, what's the longest red light in North York? Our guest tonight has worked in public service for over 20 years. He's so dedicated to the community. He is joining us on he and his wife's anniversary. That's right, folks. That's dedication. It is the president of the Bayview Cummer Neighbourhood Association, Nathan Gomes. We're so excited to chat with him tonight. Now, before we start the interview, allow me to introduce you to our host, the one, the only, Lily Chang.
Hello, voice man. No, actually, that is Sebastian from our team, and what a wonderful introduction. Hey, I know Mondays can feel like a difficult start, but we hope to pick things up today by spending some time with one of our neighbors who is truly dedicated to making our community a better place. So I'm really excited to be chatting with him, and we'll be talking about neighborhood associations. We may touch a little bit on the controversial modular housing in a friendly way, of course. And we'll also be chatting with him about his feelings about Willowdale. So without further ado, let us give a warm welcome to Nathan Gomes. Hi, Nathan.
Hi, how's it going, Lily?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day. Had my anniversary taco at Henderson and Finch. And yeah, it's been an awesome day. So I'm really happy to be here and happy to support your new initiative to keep us all connected, because I know that it's a priority of yours to foster connections in our neighborhood. And I'm very proud of what you've done and what you've accomplished. So it's really amazing to see what you've done, and I'm very happy that you're a part of my neighborhood now, as a leader of NeighborLink, which is also in I believe our catchment area as well. So welcome to our neighborhood, and thank you for all that you do, and keeping everyone connected. It's a real pleasure to have someone of your talent and skill contributing to our neighborhood. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nathan. I don't know what to say after that. Actually, I wanted to ask you, how long have you lived in Willowdale?
I was actually born and raised in Willowdale. So I am first generation Canadian. My parents had emigrated to Canada in the 1970s, and they came up to Willowdale, and much of it was farmland still, just north of Steeles. But yeah, they settled down. They put their roots down, and I went to school here in the neighborhood. I went to Bayview College, high school, and I grew up here. And then I moved downtown for a while. Then I met my wife and decided to set my roots back here in familiar territory, where I raise my sons. One is 10 and the other one is 12, so they're getting up there, but yeah, I've raised them here their whole life, and this is the place that I call home. So yeah, that's.
And what is your favorite memory growing up in Willowdale?
Oh, one of the things that just riding around on my bike as a kid. Just going through the parks and the green space, and just with my friends, just going to play baseball in the parks. So those are some of my most cherished childhood memories. Growing up, and I think just going, like when I was a teenager, I used to head down to the Shepherd Grand. At the corner there, watched some movies in the 90s, and then so I went. My first job was at like Loblaws, so I worked here, I lived here, and now I raise a family here. So I'm very connected to the neighborhood, and I'm very. When I moved back here, I got a little letter in my mailbox, and it said, join our neighborhood association, and that was like a decade ago. And I didn't know what it was. I had a little newborn with me. I walked in, I pushed him in, and little did I know, 12 years later, I'd be president of the neighborhood group. But yeah, I've tried my best to make connections and to grow the community. And yeah, Willowdale it's always been my home, and those are my memories. It's right from birth to now. In different ways I've participated in community life. So yeah, that's.
You've seen a tremendous amount of change from farmlands just north of Steeles to now the density that we have in our community. What would you say, has been your experience of this, I guess, evolution of Willowdale?
Over time, I've seen a lot more connections. Like the Shepherd subway was, an amazing piece that Mel Lastman put in. It helped us get from, Fairview Mall to actually allow me to get from the house where I grew up to work, which was downtown, happened to be downtown really quickly. So that was great. When I had my first job, I would jump on the 401. I had my first car, it was a ratty old Buick, but it was rusted, but I was able to get onto the 401 really quick and get to my job on time. But I think now, as density has picked up, it's a lot harder to get around. I think that's like a major change is just the traffic volume. Yeah, it's just that. In terms of farmland, I don't really remember a whole lot because I was very small at that time. I'm an 80s kid. I was born in the 80s, and so I didn't I don't have those memories, but I have heard from people here that Centerpoint Mall was a farm once, and yeah, I've seen different things. Fairview Malls had a Simpsons, and yeah, so much change. Before the theaters came up, Bayview Village had a theater back in the day, an Atlantis theater that my friends and I used to go and watch B movies at. So that's gone. There was a Kmart there at one point, but yeah, there's so much change. But yeah, it's incredible.
So, you talk about you got a flyer to join the neighborhood association. For some people, a neighborhood association is about lobbying for something or advocating. For some people, it's just, they just want a fee every year. Why do you think people should be part of a neighborhood association?
Well, first of all, our association is not a lobby group. It is a community organization that has set functions, pieces of its mandate. So the first one is to create a sense of community. It's the first part of our mandate is to protect the social, cultural, and economic interests of our neighborhood. And part of that mandate is to create events that create a sense of community, because we believe that having a strong community builds community bonds with one another, and when you have community bonds, you are more resilient, and you're able to deal with some of the change that we said a lot easier. It also helps us. Often we see a lot of interest groups. Special interest groups, whether they are funded by charities or developers or whatever it is, they have their own agenda, and that can, in some cases, jeopardize the safety of your community, or in some safety or security, or it can just be disruptive, right? So I think having a collective voice in a neighborhood is kind of like a mini community union of sorts, in that everyone pays their dues, and then we pipe up if something happens, and we say, look, you're putting this. I know you wanted to touch on modular housing earlier, but you put this modular housing on the front lawn of a senior's residence, and they're vulnerable, right? Like this is not something that they feel safe with, right? Like, would they want to go outside and like if they're nervous, they might become more isolated, right? Like those social things, and their and vulnerability is important, right? Like to think about, and often those perspectives are not thought about, as we learned. Like sometimes you just go down a list and you pick the property that you think fits XYZ, but unless you live here, you don't know what the characteristics are, and you're not considering those things. And some people don't have a voice, right? Because they are more vulnerable, and then you have other groups are saying there's another vulnerable group, and then how do you reconcile the two vulnerables? Two wrongs don't make a right, right? Like, so it's often challenging on things like that. Then we have other issues like Yonge Street North planning study, right, where they're taking lanes off they're going to narrow Finch to a single lane, Steeles to a single lane, Willowdale Avenue to a single lane. And Lily, like I mentioned earlier, getting to my first job, thinking about getting to Loblaws, my $6.85 job, was a lot harder. It would have been a lot harder if with less traffic. And now as a parent, I rush home to pick up my kid, and I have to take him to an extracurricular, dance class on the other side of in Scarborough. And how am I going to get to the 401 to get there? Or if I take if I take Finch, I'm going to be on a single lane. So things like that, resonate with me. And then there are other things, people think about speeding and road issues. Those are interesting things that impact my neighborhood, but others have different perspectives. Like, community is different to different people. The city sees things more connected. Their objective is to get people from Scarborough to Finch Station as fast as possible, but often that conflicts with people in between. So, it's just about balancing those interests, and, having a voice that says, think about the people that live here, think about their lives as well, and, their prosperity. Like, I moved here because I knew that the community, Willowdale, is very central located, and it has, opportunity to get to Mississauga in 20 minutes, Scarborough in 20 minutes, downtown in 20 minutes. Well, it used to be 20 minutes.
Yeah, I was like,
but
I don't know what roads you're driving.
But yeah, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah,
like it's that's been, I guess, an advantage, right? But it's all about thinking about all of those interests, and trying to be respectful and dialogue, and not point at people, say, oh, you're anti-homeless, or you're like this group. And I see a lot of that painting when it's not really necessary, because we're all in the same city, we're all in the same, even though we're in the same community, we're not saying no to we're not saying no to homeless people, we're not saying any of that stuff. We're just saying, look, you have these vulnerable people here that are seniors. Think about what you're doing. They're protesting, which we did not help them do. Voices of Willowdale did not help them do. They did it on their own, and they took their own initiative. And I'm very, very surprised, like an 80-year-old man, senior, orchestrated much of that. So, it was it's very amazing to see, how people can come together. And even in the absence of a neighborhood association, they came across and they made that distinction happen. And I know you'd asked me, like, what is the difference between the Voices of Willowdale and the BCNA as an organization? So, BCNA is an incorporated nonprofit. It is a organization that has existed since the 1970s. It has a rich history. It is nonpartisan, and it has a formed structure. The Voice of Willowdale is a movement. It's not made up of only people living in my catchment area. There are people living in other parts of Newtonbrook East. There are people living down where you live, just in Willowdale East, right? Like, there are different people in this region. It's a more regional movement of people, a collective of people that are, have taken matters into their own hands in the absence of, I guess, a counselor that is listening to them, right? So, when people don't feel heard, this is kind of what you get, right? So that's the main distinction, I think, between them. As you can see, even if you go to deputations, I spoke for the BCNA. I did not speak for Voice of Willowdale. There are clear distinctions and clear lines, right? So, but we do have similar concerns over the same project, right? Obviously. So, so that's what I know. I deviated off your question.
Yeah, I guess.
But
I think it would be helpful for people in our community to know what is the status of things right now on that project from your vantage point of, we've seen these protests, we know there's deputations that have happened. What is the current status of the decision and the project?
Well, the city has moved forward. So I guess Councillor Fillion, Gord Perks, and Councillor Fletcher, and a number of councillors, they came together and they voted on this issue and they passed it through their committee. I know that the BCNA, Voice of Willowdale, Silverview, and a number of different organizations, and I would say about 70 people, all came out. They all voiced their concerns, for and against as well. And in the end, they passed it and it went to council. Council passed it again. This is federal money, so it's coming from the federal government. And the federal government has clear timelines on the money. And that is kind of forcing this kind of rash decision making, right? And a very contracted consultation process. But the city itself has passed it, but we know that they need a municipal zoning order to make this happen. And so far, our main champion, Stan Cho, he has come out and said, you have to have proper consultation before you get this MZO. So, ultimately, council can pass what the council wants to pass, but it's going to be very challenging for them, I think, to move forward without an MZO on this project. I think they know. I think they know that it is going to be challenging, and I think a lot of this is political theater. It's a game that they like to play. It's a game at the expense of the seniors, because I personally don't think that a normal sane person would put a modular housing facility and all these harm reduction policies in place on the front lawn of a senior's residence and beside a long-term care facility with 400 to 500 seniors, all vulnerable. So that I respect many of the religious organizations, and even I believe one of the pastors from We Love Willowdale came out, and I respect his point of view, But yeah, like there are a lot of people that are not happy and are concerned, right? Like, you know, you put it something like this, it's like 70, I think 80 meters from an all-girls school too, and you know there were concerns there that were raised as well. So you know, all around there are a lot of people that are concerned. There are hundreds of signs on lawns. Every time they get taken down, more go up. And it's kind of like you know, and you have kind of like the homeless activists that are cutting up the signs, and then you have the and I think there was like wooden signs on the property raising concerns that the seniors put there, and now they've been cut in half, and just this morning. So you know, it's very unfortunate to see what's happening now. Where you know some of the more militant organizations are trying to stifle things, right? Like these people are peacefully protesting. They're putting their signs up, and you know there's video now that's being posted where you know people are walking their dogs, and then coming and lifting signs up people's lawns, like private property. They'll walk onto their private property just to make sure that you know the voices aren't heard. So there's a lot of concern there, I think, in terms of the democratic process and their expression and their ability to express themselves. And I think the MZO sort of culminates that anti-democratic kind of you know position that's been taken, right? So you know I don't see this like as many people might know, you know, Councillor Fillion voted against this a development on that very property in the late 90s. It went to the OMB, and the city defended the property from development. And the councillor went on record, and you know the reason that the site has a site-specific exemption for seniors is because he himself is the one who defended the property, and defended the seniors back then. So this is kind of you know concerning, but you know at the same time you know, as a political scientist, I look at this stuff and I think, okay, you know what, like maybe he's at the end of his term. Maybe you know he doesn't have the same passion for a community as he once did. You know, but you know, well, I'm still, that's my speculation.
Yeah.
My analysis, but you know, I'd like to think he cares about everyone. But our relationship isn't the greatest as a result of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that housing and the homeless situation is probably also a big factor in how people are looking at the challenge. But yeah, it's good to know where you know this discussion is at in terms of. So it sounds like there's still some possibilities of what might happen, and you're continuing to advocate. So whether or not you know people agree, I think it is important that people feel like they have the chance to be heard, and that there is a due process, especially you know when it's you know people who live directly and will be directly impacted. It's important that the voices of direct neighbors have an avenue, and BCNA has provided that platform. So I just wanted to, you know, pivot to, you talked about like fostering community connections through events. What kind of events, you know, prior to COVID are long-standing traditions of the BCNA?
You know, it's funny that you've started this Meet Your Neighbor. So I'll tell you a story. You know, over the years, we've done various events called Meet Your Neighbor. We used to have them on people's driveways. So we used to bring like coffee or lemonade out, and you know, just a bunch of neighbors get together on their driveway and they meet each other one day, and that was Meet Your Neighbor. And we tried that. You know, it worked in some places, but it had its challenges. But you know, I think with all the investment and grants that we've been able to attract to our neighborhood and development, we have now built which we're going to launch. Well, we had planned to launch our own streaming kind of, not Meet Your Neighbor, but like, just a different way to connect with people, because a lot of neighborhood associations haven't modernized with respect to social media, and they still use email lists as their primary form of communication. And most people now, they want to look at their phones, and they just they go through their thing, and they'd rather have me speaking with them, like I'm speaking with you right now, and that dialogue is what we're going to be creating. And we've made some significant investments in that technology, and I think over the next year, as part of my mandate as president, we're going to make that shift more so, and foster those connections, hopefully with your help as well, and in partnership with you, and fostering those connections with NeighborLink as well, that operates in our neighborhood. So I have in the past, before I'd stepped aside for a while, invited you to come and speak, and it is still my hope that in this year, we've been successful again with additional grant funding, and we will continue to build that community and build those connections with you and with the entire Willowdale community, because all our events are not restricted to our catchment. They're completely open to Willowdalers. They're open to all Torontonians, and because it is a provincial grant, we have made it open to underserviced areas outside in jurisdictions that don't have access or the talent or skill that we have down here in Southern Ontario, right? So, we've been, our sense of community is growing, right? Not just within, but we're also acting in a much broader sense to try to connect communities, not just in our own neighborhood, but around the neighborhoods and other neighborhood associations that don't have those connections or ability yet. So, we're trying to transfer our talent and our skills and some of that knowledge as well. So that's basically.
And so you have an event tomorrow night. We can pull up the poster, right, and show everyone, and you can let us know, what is being shared tomorrow night.
So we've held about a series of I think this year about 12 events. In this series, we recognize that the pandemic has had a significant impact on our community. The governments of Canada and Ontario have both agreed with us, and they have, because of our long-standing ability to deliver, they've provided us with some grant money to put on these networking and skills development courses for our residents free of charge. So, if anyone who has lost their job or is struggling, regardless of their age, this is not an exclusively seniors event. So, youth, middle-aged people, anyone of any age faces many different types of systemic barriers in employment. So this is aimed at breaking down some of those barriers and helping people make connections. And this is not just, as I said, our association fosters social, cultural, and economic interests. So, the well-being of our neighbors and their economic well-being is important. So this is one of the initiatives that we put forward. This is the final series, and I believe our new Associate Minister of Transportation, Stan Cho, will be there, along with his colleague, Monty McNaughton.
So it's wonderful that you're organizing these empowering and educational workshops that are open to all of Willowdale and even beyond. So any links that are shared in our Facebook group or on the BCNA Facebook page or the BCNA website, these can be shared widely. The events are not restricted to just Willowdale residents. At the same time, it would be great to benefit more Willowdalers for all the time and effort that is invested into putting together an informational session. So now we're at the Willowdale rapid fire round. And basically I'm going to ask you a string of questions and you just like tell us, the answer. This is the rapid fire round of our evening. Gotcha. Okay, so what is your favorite spot to hang out in Willowdale?
Just the park, I guess, Lillian Park.
Lillian Park. What is your favorite place?
You mean like restaurant or?
No, anywhere in Willowdale.
Okay.
And then what is your favorite place to eat in Willowdale?
Oh, Chung Chun's. Have you heard of it? They make the best rice hot dogs. It's on Bayview,
yeah.
It's so amazing. Like, it just melts in your mouth. Like,
yes, and there's a lineup there on weekends, every weekend.
Yes, it's amazing. Great Korean place.
And what do you think sets Willowdale apart from other neighborhoods?
I think its unique position, geographic position. I mean, we're in the middle of, we're just south of the fastest growing municipality in Ontario, which is Vaughan. Most of our residents work I would say about 50% of our residents work outside of our catchment area, like outside of Toronto in general. Like they either work up north or they go to Mississauga or to Brampton. And we have many people that go downtown. So it's, just our diverse transportation patterns and our, our ethnic and cultural makeup is very different from, I guess, south of here. We have Koreans, Chinese, Persian communities, that might not live at Yonge and Eglinton or south of this area, right? You don't have your Corax supermarket if you go south of Eglinton. So it's very different makeup, and that makes us unique culturally. Socially, I think Willowdale is a little different, and I think we struggle a little bit more. We're unique in that because of that diversity, sometimes we don't often see each other, right? And we don't often connect with one another in a meaningful way. And I think some of the work that you're doing here, other parts of the city don't have you. But if they did, they would have, someone that's connecting them and building that infrastructure that doesn't exist, right? So, you've done quite an amazing job in connecting people, and, I can see you're continuing to do that. So, that's the other unique thing about Willowdale. So I hope that
Thanks, Nate.
I hope that you continue what you're doing.
What's funny? I think only a political scientist would say that diverse traffic patterns make a community unique. I think that's a great answer. And what is one thing you'd like to see more of? Something, or you'd like something added to Willowdale? What do you think Willowdale needs?
I think some of your guests might point to some infrastructure and things like that. But, for me, I think we just need to learn how to understand that we need to understand each other better in a way that, that we're all one part of one human family, regardless of your ethnicity, what religion you are. We're all human beings. One of the things I think that I've witnessed as a first-generation Canadian is, people come here as landed immigrants, they become citizens, and they tend to stay within their cultural groups initially, but it's their kids. It's their kids that, grow up here, they make friends in school of different cultures and ethnicities, and then they marry different cultures and ethnicities, and they learn to appreciate one another, right? So it's understanding, and I think what we need is more of what you've developed, that infrastructure and community connection to help us see those common things that we often don't see amongst one another. Until this modular housing thing that united so many people, regardless of their ethnicity, their culture, it didn't matter. you know, everyone was concerned, and that, you know, for me was an eye opener in that, you know, I think people started seeing one another. You know, before our neighborhood group wasn't a diverse board, but now we have someone from every ethnicity on our board. All major communities in our neighborhood. It's a very diverse group of people, and they're all parents. They're all, well, not all of them, but I'd say about 70% of them are parents. We're all, you know, we're all born in the 80s and 70s, and you know, some millennials as well. But you know, just in general, like I've started to see issues like this unite us, and it's unfortunate that these often divisive issues are the things that ultimately bring us together. Mm-hmm. which is interesting. But yeah, like in terms of things that we need more of, I think we need more of community infrastructure to what you've been building here, and you know, this great live stream you're doing. So I think we need more of that.
What we need is more meet your neighbor on your driveway events across Willowdale as the pandemic lifts. I have a little dream that, you know, we'll have some Willowdale wide, either it could be a yard sale event where everyone has a yard sale on the same day. It could be what you described, a coffee on the driveway. Every street has a few people doing that. But we just need to know each other more, and especially for mental health after, you know, the pandemic.
So Lily, let me tell you this, right? Remember I told you we had grant funding? Ironically, we were funded to hold, and I'm not making this up, on 175 Cummer, that park space, it's written into the grant agreement way back like a year ago, to hold barbecues, community barbecues. And we've been funded to hold one in Willowdale, and it will be open to everyone. Everyone, regardless of where you live, are welcome. And that, for us, is going to be where we start doing that community building. And I hope that you decide to be a part of that because you live in our community, and help out with that, because that is going to be no small undertaking, but it's going to be the first of many smaller micro events, like the barbecue, like the neighborhood stuff that you're trying to do, but in person. So, you know, we're doing a lot of these cool things, and it starts, you know, whether it's a movement like Voice of Willowdale or a movement of multiple community groups or community people, whether it's virtual or a solid neighborhood association, or if it's a charity. You know, when we all work together and we all come together, we can all build together. So, you know, that's basically what we're trying to do, and I hope you decide to be a part of that and part of, you know, what we're trying to do as a team. So when we all row together, you know, we can do some great things. So I hope that that you know, jump aboard, and you know, come and help us build some of these things in our neighborhood. And you know, we don't need the councillor represents us, but at the same time, you know, it's the community that makes the community. It's not the councillor that makes the community. So, you know, if we all work together and we all continue to do what we're doing, we can build a stronger, more resilient community where, you know, everyone, regardless of your age, ethnicity, comes together. And, you know, we're seeing each other, we talk to one another, and, you know, we recognize who we are on the street and we say hello, right? So that's I think we're all trying to do the same thing in our own way. And yeah, so that's all I wanted to tell you and to invite you to help.
Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us, Nathan, and thank you for your dedication to your community. I know that you've spent tireless and countless hours serving your neighborhood, and what great news to hear that you now have such a diverse leadership of your neighborhood association that really reflects the diversity of the neighborhood that you serve in. So I myself am Proud to, have my office in M2M, M2M postal code. And if you who are watching now or later, if you live in the area, if you live in the Bayview Cummer catchment area, please visit their website, which is Bayview Cummer. Oh, sorry, maybe you should tell us.
www.babycummer.ca. And
Yes.
to be clear, you don't have to live directly in our catchment. You can be as part of, as long as you live in M2M in Newtonbrook East, you can become a member. The only difference is to become a voting member, you have to live in our catchment. But we represent people in areas within the Yonge Street North Planning Study, within Newtonbrook East. And we have a very strong partnership with the Silverview Neighbourhood Association, so which has also existed since the 1970s. So we work together, and we consider the whole area our home. So you're part of that. You're part of that community too now. So
thank you, Nathan, and thank you so much for sharing with us. Maybe we'll catch you having a Korean rice hot dog sometime in the area. Yeah. So thank you everyone else for tuning in. We look forward. We'll meet another new neighbor next Monday night here on Meet Your Neighbor. And Sebastian, I don't know if you want to pop in and say hello before we wrap up tonight.
Hi, everyone. Yes. Thank you for tuning in for another installment of Meet Your Neighbor. If you want to be a guest on the show, you can connect with us. We'd love to meet you. Email us at sebastian@neighborlink.org. That's sebastian@neighborlink.org. And another little NeighborLink plug, this coming Friday, June 25th, is We Love Willowdale Donut Day. And there are still a few boxes of delicious Krispy Kreme donuts up for grabs, and you can order them right now. So as soon as you get off this live stream, you can head to www.tiny.cc/Willowdale to order your donuts. It's a dozen for $15 and 2 dozen for $25. Nathan is clicking. He's ordering his donuts. I can see it right now, reflected in his glasses. We love to see that. Special thank you to Mrs. Gomes for sharing Nathan on their anniversary. And yeah, we're going to play some music and we're going to head out, and we will see you next Monday for another installment of Meet Your Neighbor, same time, same place, new neighbor. Good night, North York.
And happy anniversary.
Yeah, thank you. See you soon.